What is the best question that you can ask a rabbi? My name is Rabbi Shmuel Kopel, and please feel free down below in the comments to write your question, and perhaps I'll answer it. Obviously, if I feel it's a good question, I will answer it at a future date. But I will tell you that yesterday I actually put on my Facebook asking people to ask me questions, and I had a huge list of questions, and I'm about to share with you. Each question is exciting. Don't miss any of the questions. There are some really interesting questions that people asked me, and I'm going to answer it. And if you want to ask a question to the rabbi, there's a good chance that somebody else already asked it, so listen up. But before I begin, I do want to ask you a favor. Please click the button right below this video that says subscribe. Once you hit that button, a bell will appear. Click the bell as well, and you will be notified every time I upload a new video. This series is actually only one of two series of two videos that I'm going to put out on the questions from yesterday, because there was so many questions that people asked and everybody complaining that I'm not answering their questions. So I will try my best to answer every question that I feel I have a good answer for, and everyone that was obviously a decent, interesting question. Even if it's a little funny, I will still try to answer the question. How about that? So we're about to begin with 10 questions that I was asked yesterday. And next video, we will deal with another 10. So if I didn't answer your questions, don't worry, I might answer it in the next video. And of course, if you didn't ask me your questions yet, right down there below, please click on the comments, leave a comment with the question, and I will attempt to answer it either tomorrow or at a future date. Well, without further ado, let's get to the questions. Question number one was asked to me by a Jonathan Lowe. Okay, here's an interesting question. Do you use conditioner for that proud beard of yours, or is it all shampoo? That's a brilliant question. Today, in our times, it's actually becoming pretty popular to have beards, and of course, rabbis had beards for a really long time. So we're pretty good at taking care of it, or not. But how do we do it? Do we use shampoo? Do we use conditioner? Well, that will depend on your rabbi. As far as I'm concerned, I actually only use shampoo for many, many years. And somebody suggested, why don't you try conditioner? And I use conditioner, and it makes my beard feel so much softer, and it doesn't get as knotted. Okay, when you use shampoo, it gets very knotty. So I use conditioner so that it doesn't knot up and come into these big bunches. And as a matter of fact, you could see some rabbis out there that they have these beards with like these big bunches up there, and that's probably because they didn't use conditioner. Of course, today there is other products out there that claim to do a better job than conditioner, but admittingly, I never use them. I have used just regular conditioner, sometimes even women's conditioner if I can't find men's conditioner. Conditioner, whatever they put in there, it's actually very good to make the beard nice and soft, fluffy, without having to get all knotted up. So that's to answer your question. That's question number one. Question number two, what is the root to love? Okay, the world is obsessed with, oh, just find love and everything will be okay. I understand this. This was actually asked by a Jima Heron. I hope I pronounce your name right. The fact is that the word love in English is very different than the word ahava, which is the word for love in Hebrew. The word for love in Hebrew, ahava, is actually rooted in the concept of connection. When a person says, I love you, very often they're not really thinking about the other person, they're thinking about themselves. I love you. When I love you, what does that mean? That there's something about you that makes me feel good, right? That's usually what the word love in English means. That something about you makes me feel good. That is not the true concept of ahava in Hebrew, which is also the basic Kabbalistic concept of ahava. Ahava comes from the word I feel connected to you. So sometimes you just meet somebody and you don't necessarily know why. You don't necessarily you don't feel all warm and fluffy when you're next to them, but for some reason you just feel connected to them. It's a sense of connection. That is what ahava is, and that's what true love should be. And if you ask me from a relationship perspective, I would say the exact same thing. If you go and you meet a woman or vice versa, and you want to engage in a relationship, um, obviously, eventually to become a marital relationship and build a family, many people are always thinking of themselves. What is that person giving to me? Do I feel good when I'm around that person? And what this does is that, yes, you meet somebody that you feel, I really like being around that person because they make me laugh, because they make me feel warm, because I feel sexually attracted to them. And therefore, they go and get married. Little do they know, after some time, some of those feelings disappear. People change. And then all of a sudden, the whole relationship falls apart. The reason for that is because they were not engaging in true love. Love is that sense of connectivity. I feel connected to you. I don't necessarily know why I feel connected to you, but I just feel connected to you. That is the true feeling of love, and that's the root of love, is a sense that two souls, essentially, two souls have a sense of connectivity. We two are connected in life. We're connected in what we're meant to do in life, obviously, and therefore I feel connected to that person. So that is to answer the second one. What is the root to love? Now, Diana Allen Lowy asked another question. How can unconditional love, forgiveness, and speaking your truth change your life for the better? Well, that's a great question. The only question on the question is what is the purpose of life and how could life become better? And what's better, what's worse? Some people think of better in the monetary situation, right? I have more money, I'm better. I have less money, I'm worse. Some people look at it in relationship. If I have a good relationship, I'm better. If not, it's worse. You have to first get to the core of what is life. Now, if life is all about the pursuit of truth, bringing truth to the world and helping the world become a better place, so even if by you giving unconditional love, you get attacked for it and you suffer consequences for it, well, it doesn't make a difference. You're still doing what life is about. You're gaining from the very fact that you're doing what life is about. Forget about whether you personally gain or not. If you're thinking of your own personal gain, then perhaps you need to think of what is life really about. If life is all about you, then of course unconditional love doesn't work. Okay, because unconditional love by definition means you're thinking of the other person, you're thinking of the greater purpose, you're thinking of the greater mission. So you cannot, the answer would be that if you're looking for unconditional love because you personally want to gain something, that by definition means you're not giving unconditional love. You're giving conditional love in the fact that you're getting something back, which essentially, if that's the case, there may not always be a benefit to unconditionally loving, because sometimes you can unconditionally love people and they don't reciprocate. So the answer is as simple as it is. Unconditional love is it's always beneficial if you see yourself as giving, as providing, as making a difference. Then of course unconditional love by definition is making a difference, making the world a better place. But if you're looking for your own personal self, well, sometimes unconditional love will bring a benefit. You love people that love you back. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you love people and they don't reciprocate. They don't treat you the same way you treat them. All right, that's question number 3 so far. Wow, it's taken a bit of time. Let's try to do this a little quicker. We have Randy I can't even say the name. Deluzio. Randy Deluzio. If God exists, why does he allow so much evil in the world? Now, that is a brilliant question, Randy. The question I would have to ask on you, if God exists, could you even consider knowing anything about him or anything about the greater picture? Okay, if God exists, he created the whole world, he created the whole universe. The details in the universe are so complex, right? Even the greatest scientists are barely scratching the surface and understanding what's really going on in this universe. So if you can't understand what's going on in the universe, how could you begin to judge God whether or not he built the universe correctly when, the greatest scientists barely know a fraction of what's really going on in the universe? So the way I see it is there's two. I mean, if you accept that God exists, you really have there's no way to question. You can't question anything because he's so much vaster, greater, bigger, beyond anything that we know that we can't start asking, well, how does he do evil? Why does he do evil? We don't see a bigger picture. We don't know what's going on from his perspective. Now, in Kabbalistic teaching, sometimes we try to learn his perspective so that we can then see why some of these things are happening. That does require a lot of time and contemplation, and very often it requires you as an individual to put yourself aside in the way you feel to realize that there's a much bigger picture out there than the way you see it. Okay, life, death, pain, we only see what goes on in a very short time period. We don't know what the gain of that is. We don't know what the consequences of suffering, pain, the positive consequences may be. We have no idea what that is. So once you're dealing with God, if he exists, you can't ask any questions on it, right? You could ask, well, maybe he doesn't exist, but then again, that's a separate question that you're not necessarily asking. I don't really want to deal with that, and I don't either want to deal at the moment because it's a long topic that I can deal with in the future. Is how do you know God exists? And yes, there is mathematical scientific ways of thinking that will get you to the conclusion that there is a greater power out there, etc. But that's not for this video. Next, Kerry Gavney. Okay, why is suicide wrong or right? Now, that's a brilliant question. It's very difficult to answer. I really hope you're not considering suicide at the moment. Suicide is an interesting concept. A lot of people, especially in the Western world and the American world, they think, well, it's your choice. You can just choose to live, to die. What's the difference? It's your choice. The fact is you didn't choose to be born, and you're not meant to choose when you die, even if you could. Essentially, somebody came to me once and said they wanted to commit suicide because of all these difficulties that they're going through in life, and they just wanted this difficulty to end. And I looked at the guy straight in the eye, and I said, how do you know it's better on the other side? And the guy was dumbfounded because he's like, I don't. You don't know what's on the other side. So, in reality, why is suicide wrong? Because it's not your choice. You were given your body not by your choice, which means that that's not something you're meant to do. Your choice is how to deal with in life, how to do what's right, how not to do what's wrong, how to better this world and do your best job. By committing suicide, essentially, you're quitting on a job that you have no idea why you took to begin with. So if you quit a job, for example, if you get hired as a accountant and you don't like what's going on and you quit, well, you know why you took the job. You took the job because you wanted to get paid. You took the job because you wanted to have a nice working atmosphere. You wanted to have good relationship with your coworkers. Whatever reason you took your job, you know why you took your job. And because you know why you took your job, you can then say, my job is not getting me where I need to go. And therefore you can quit. If you commit suicide, you are going to be facing yourself prior to you when you were born and facing yourself and saying, I quit because, and when you leave your body, you may realize that you quit for a reason that doesn't make any sense. Okay. Meaning from your other perspective, you came to this world for a reason. You don't know what that reason is. Okay. And we believe very strongly in Kabbalah that a soul is not forced into the world. They choose to come to the world for a particular purpose. So imagine you now leave your body and you're facing yourself and you now remember why you came to this world. And you're like, crap, I came to this world for this reason. I was fulfilling that reason. And then I just quit in the middle. It's like going to a job. They pay the best salary. You really love your coworkers. It's your dream career. And you just quit it for nothing. Imagine how you'd feel. And you look back and you're like, what an idiot. Why did I quit that? I had the best job that I could get. That was my dream career, etc. Anyways, that's the story there. That's why suicide is wrong, because number one, you didn't make your body, so what gives you the right to destroy it? Number two is, how do you know you're actually making the right decision when you have no idea why you came to the world? If you knew why you came to the world, you could say, I'm not doing what I came to the world for, and then before I leave, etc. All right. Next question by Gary M. Dietz. Can God not know the future until it happens, or can he change his mind and change it before it happens? Now, I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to ask, but it sounds like you're trying to ask, does God know the future, and can he change the future? If he knows it, could he change the future before it happens? According to Kabbalistic thought, God knows the future 100%. He knows everything that will happen, yet for some reason we still choose it when it happens. How that works, it actually says, is something that the human brain cannot understand. Because if I right now could make a decision to do something or not to do something that God wants, then how could God know previously what I'm going to choose if I didn't choose it yet? But that is because the whole concept of time is something within our human framework, and it's not necessarily something that we can understand, right? So we cannot understand a reality beyond time. We can't understand a reality where time doesn't really exist. It doesn't fit into our human body. Our human body works on time. There's no such thing as going without time. Okay, next one. Where are we? Do you think that Hashem, God, has a favorite ice cream? That's a good question. Essentially, God not only created ice cream, but he even created the love for ice cream and the feeling towards ice cream. And so, for example, if you ask, does God like anything better or worse? It's only because that's the way he chooses to make it. So for example, you may like pizza more than you like steak. But the reason for that is that you didn't make pizza, you didn't make steak, you didn't make your own human feelings, right? So one human feeling could be bigger than the other. But imagine if you actually made the feelings, you could program one feeling to be better than the other. So essentially, at the core, God can't like one thing more than another. Because, at the core. Why? Because he created both, and he could have created one to be liked more than the other. He could have decided that he wants chocolate ice cream more than raspberry ice cream, but that's only because he chose it. He chose to create himself to like one thing more than the other, and the whole like is only relative to the creation, not relative to the creator. So if you got that, let me know. It's a bit deep, but I hope you got it. What a question are we up to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We did 8 questions. 2 more questions for today, and then we're done. Please stay along. We have some of the most interesting questions out there coming up right now. Greg Evans asks as follows. In the sense of policing the police, who is policing God? Will he be judged? That is a brilliant question. If God will be judged, then who will judge the judge of God judging? The fact is that everything always comes to a point. There is always a top, and there's just no way around it. There's always an ultimate judge that has to be beyond everybody else, because if they're not, then, somebody else could judge them back. One of the reasons why the United States built their constitution with the 3 separations of power is that they kind of judge each other, so they kind of go around in a circle. Okay, but you have to realize that each person was given a perspective by a creator, and your perspective is different from somebody else, and you don't see the whole picture. You could only see parts of the picture, and that's why it is very difficult in general for a judge to judge. It is very difficult. How do you judge someone else? You were not in their shoes. You don't really know what happened to them. Somebody murders, and you're like, that's so horrible. I would never murder. Well, you would never murder, perhaps because you were raised in a nice family where you always were fed every day, where you never had to worry about where your next meal came from. You hopefully were not abused. Some people, they were abused as a child, and they were trained to be angry and aggressive. And for that person to kill, even though I will say it's horrible and evil and deserves to be punished, but to judge the person, it's very difficult, an ultimate judge to judge a person, because you will never have been where that person was. So for anybody to judge anybody, it's very difficult. And being that God is the original reality, nothing else could experience something as the original reality, because the original reality is, by definition, um, infinitely different than any other reality, because every reality began, the infinite never began. So nothing could really judge the infinite, because you could never have a framework of infinity. So how could what would give the right for anybody to judge God himself? Now, that being said, because God is infinite and everything comes from him, essentially he built the program, so he's the only one that can properly judge if the program was followed properly, because he knows the program, because he built the program. All right? Now, last and final question, the most interesting question of the day, asked by numerous people over and over and over. Sharon Sinclair, Hackner, Ellie Neiman, Arthur Fleck, Sarah Britz, Brian Wall, Avril Conway, Alicia Richardson. They all seem to be asking the same question. I will ask it word for word from one of the questions, and I'll answer basically all of them at once. Why do you ask so many questions? I mean, seriously, it makes me question your integrity by boney giving anything. I'm not sure what that means. By boney giving anything away, but asking, or by not giving anything away, I guess, but asking for so much information. That's a brilliant question. So many people ask me all the time. I have made videos in the past on this, but I will give a brief answer to what you're saying. Most of you are somewhat recent on my Facebook. I mean recent meaning in the last year or so, versus I've been on Facebook for approximately, 15 years already, approximately. Been on Facebook for a really long time. The reason why I haven't been noticed on Facebook is because, as a rabbi, as most rabbis, I like to preach. I like to tell people what I think that they should think. And of course, if I put out a statement, this is what I think you should think, no matter how good it is, there's all sorts of competitors, many people saying the exact same thing, and I feel like I'm talking to a wall. So at some point, it was probably about a year or so ago, I decided that people are not so interested in hearing information, but there's plenty of people that like giving information. There's so many people that like sharing their thoughts, helping other people understand things. And I decided to be somewhat a facilitator of that. Okay, so I basically ask a very intriguing question that's meant to trigger your thought process and hear what you have to say. And I learn from what you say, and other people learn from what you say. And of course, what's my ultimate goal is not necessarily that you should learn from me, but is that you should learn, period. So I want you to learn. If you learn from me or you learn from somebody else, that's fine. And at the end of the day, my question asking method has been, in my experience, the most successful strategy of getting people to learn. And especially when I ask the type of questions I ask, many people, as you can see in the comments, many people are answering the questions by saying, wow, your questions are amazing and they really trigger me to think, they get me to think. Exactly. So my question gets you to think and gets you to learn much more than I could if I give you a statement. My statement is limited only to my small perspective of how I see things. A question, it's exact opposite. It's opening a door for you to begin exploring, for you to teach me, for me to teach you, for everybody to teach each other. And that is what I am doing. And that's why I do what I do, because I think it's the best way for me to engage with you. And I really appreciate every single answer, even the ones that curse me out and tell me how horrible I am for not answering their questions. I even appreciate those ones because they get me to think, am I really doing the best that I can? And I have some surprises coming up in the future as well. So If you haven't done it yet, please click right here at the bottom of the screen and subscribe to my channel. You will then be informed when I upload a new video. Feel free in the comments to ask your questions. I'll be happy to answer them. Of course, if it's a good question, I feel it deserves an answer, I might not answer it because I don't know the answer. That could be as well. But I really appreciate every single question. And if I don't answer it, I hope somebody else on the channel will. Have a great day, and thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate you for doing that. Thank you so much, Rabbi Shmuel Koppel. Have a great day. Bye-bye.